We're starting the class up again, this time because I am home, at home. Home would be back to Godhead. So we are here, and so we're going to start having our same time class every day. Okay. All right, let's see how many people join us this time. It's been a while since we've been giving the classes like this online, since we were traveling in Europe for 3 weeks. And so we should be here in the United States until 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 actually September. So most days I will be giving the class now. So until September, I will be here September 9th or something like that, after Janmashtami. So let's have class from the Jaiva Dharma. Goranga Variteave Pulaka Shiriade Muretena Babini Goranga Pulaka Samsara Pasana Kapiti Chai Harakavinitai Chandra Corona Veve Sarabhashana Mola Kapiti Chai Shaya Chiti Kabi Shurame Mana Ramaya Bushi Vrindavanava Vishaya Chiti Kabi Shurame Mana Ramaya Oi mea kuti Kaviyama Ujapuse Yupala Nuriti Upala Dinavapane Oi mea kuti Kaviyama Ujapuse Rakura Asha Kapia Patarna Kore Sada Natamuga Raghunatapare Rahumura Sha Ratana Kore Lakasharigir Hati Hate Itenayanay Babinir Urang Kapulite Ame Lakasharigir Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramacharya All Sriptala Sitshi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chaitanya Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Param Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Govinda Shaya Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Pachuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Srimad Vilasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bom. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samadhi Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pajarni Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Jatarni Jai Prabhupada. So let us read the translation to this Vaishnava poem by Narottam Das Thakur. When will the opportune moment come to me when I shiver upon chanting the name of Lord Gauranga? When will I cry while chanting Hare Krishna? When will I receive the causeless mercy of Lord Nityananda, so that my desires for material enjoyment become insignificant? When will my mind be purified of all material anxieties and desires, so that I can understand Vrindavana? When shall I be very eager to study the books by the 6 Goswamis, so that I can understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna? The lotus feet of the 6 Goswamis are my only shelter. In constant separation from them, I remain Narottam Das. Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai. Okay, so we're going to continue with our study where we left off about 3 weeks ago on the Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So we're going to share the screen now. Let's see. Let me find that screen. It's there somewhere. Whoops. All right, there we go. Okay. Screen sharing. Let me just get this set up. Okay, we are talking about the constitution of the Jiva soul, which for those of you who don't understand. So anyway, so Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gana Jana Shlakya Jakshur Meditam Yena Tozmai Shigurve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, for those of you who don't remember, we were talking about the Jiva's Swarup. Now, we are in the category of Jiva, and Krishna is in the category of Vishnu Tattva. Got it? And Srimati Radharani is in the category of Shakti Tattva. Okay, you got Shakti Tattva, Jiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva. Also, there's another category that's not really mentioned here, that's like Shiva Tattva, which is somewhere in between Jiva and Vishnu Tattva. Where, of course, Lord Shiva emanates from the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead during the cosmic creation. So, let's continue, because this is a discussion between Brajanath and this Babaji, his Guru Maharaj. Brajanath said, I've understood that the Jiva's eternal Swarupa, that means form, is a spiritual particle, and that Swarupa, there is the beauty of limbs, etc., made of that spiritual particle. The Jiva in a state of bondage is covered by a subtle body hiding that beauty. Wow. So in other words, our beauty is being hidden. Or as Prabhupada said, when you take up Krishna consciousness, you automatically become more attractive, beautiful, effulgent, all those nice things. With the covering of the gross body, the Jiva Swarup takes on an extreme material transformation. Ooh. Is the Jiva in the liberated state completely without fault? So in other words, it's the covering of our Swarup that we appear to be transformed. Although the Jiva's not really transformed. The Jiva is Brahman. Brahman cannot be transformed. But it is small Brahman, so the Brahman can be covered. Yeah, just like a spark in the fire, like Srila Prabhupada gave that example. Babaji said, though the Swarupa, the spiritual particle, is without fault, it is not complete, since the Swarup is very small, a very small particle, and weak. That fault seen in this state is that, by the strong Maya Shakti, the Jiva is prone to lose this Swarup. Losing means lose sight of the Swarup. The Jiva never loses his Swarup in essence, but he loses sight, knowledge, realization of this Swarup. Understanding, whatever word you want to use. The Bhagavatam says, Ye ne Ravanjaksha vimuktamaninas tvayas dabavad avashuddha buddhya ahriya kritshena param padam tata patanjado nadrata yusmadangraya. O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees having impure intelligence, because of not having devotion to you, think that they are liberated and become jiva muktas after severe austerities and penances, they fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for the lotus feet of you and your devotees. Bhagavatam 10:2-34. Prabhupada would often quote this verse, talking about how Mayavadis and personalists, whatever, can at most rise to the platform of Brahman, but that platform of Brahman is not their natural state. And because it's not their natural state, they ultimately, boom, baloop. Even if the liberated Jiva attains an exalted state, that means the state of Brahman, his incomplete constitution accompanies him all times. This is called Jiva Tattva. For this reason, the Vedas have said that the Lord is the controller of Maya, and the Jiva, in all conditions, is prone to be controlled by Maya. So what we mean by incomplete constitution, I think we have to really talk about what that means. So incomplete means that we are not completely independent. Krishna is Swarat. That means Krishna is completely independent. He can do anything. He's not controlled by anyone. He could allow himself to be controlled by devotion of his devotees. But in essence, he doesn't have to be controlled by anything. He's swarat, completely independent. But out of his love for us and his love for all the jiva souls, that's us, then Krishna allows that control. And actually, that's one of the points about pure devotional service mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami, the Nectar of Devotion. That Krishna is controlled, but pure devotional service, one can attract Krishna, in other words, control Krishna. So the next chapter, very interesting, is chapter 16. The Jiva controlled by Maya. That's us, Prabhus and Pravis. Having heard the teachings of Dashamula concerning Jiva Tattva, Rajanath, after lying down at his house, began to think deeply. Who am I? I've received an answer to this question. I've understood that I'm only one particle of a ray of the spiritual sun of Krishna. Though very small, I have a sense of I, the quality of knowledge, and a small amount of spiritual bliss. I have a swarup in the form of a conscious particle. In other words, my nature is to be conscious, or as Mr. Descartes said, that cogito ergo sum. I think, or I'm conscious, or I'm able to cogitate. Therefore I am. In other words, I exist. That was his basic, foundational, axiomatic principle for his whole philosophical stance. Though very small, this form is similar to the medium-sized swarup of Krishna. Now that's very interesting, medium-sized. So why do you say Krishna's medium-sized? Okay, I'll explain that. It's called a rhetorical question. I'll explain what I mean by medium-sized, or what Bhaktivinoda Thakur means by medium-sized. That when Krishna appears with his devotee, he takes on, in relationship with his devotee, a medium size. Krishna also has a large size. Krishna is bigger than the biggest, and smaller than the smallest. Krishna enters. Let me turn off this phony. Krishna enters into the atom. Okay, there we go. Krishna, let me just see what we got here. Krishna enters into the atom. Let's make sure we got, I'm checking the sound on this. All right. Yeah, sound is all right. We turn it up a little bit. It is up. It is up all the way. Okay. So I thought we had problems then. So anyway, so Krishna enters into the atom and becomes smaller than the smallest particle, even smaller than the atom, smaller than the quark. Wow. And Krishna is bigger than the biggest, because when he breathes out, all the universes come out from him. So he's bigger than the biggest, smaller than the smallest. He is quantum theory personified. So, okay. I cannot perceive this swarup at this time. He doesn't understand this. I will become auspicious when I can be qualified to be aware of that swarup. It is necessary to know the reason why I've fallen into this misfortune. Tomorrow I will ask my Guru Dev. So what he's going to ask Guru Dev is, why can't I realize my swarup? I know theoretically what the swarup is. I know theoretically what the swarup is, but I don't realize it. My spirit, not this body. Okay. Anyway, someone keeps. I think I need to just turn this phone off completely. Okay, got it. Thinking in this way, he fell asleep at 2 praharas in the night. At the end of the night, Brajanath dreamed that he had given up samsara and accepted the dress of a Vaishnava. He rose from sleep and began to think that the Lord will pull him from samsara. While sitting in the hall of his private Durga temple, some students came and, after offering respects to his feet, said, "We have learned the tricks of Nyaya from you. We want you to teach us Kushumanjali." Oh, that's interesting. More philosophy. Brajanath said politely, "Like Nimai Pandit, I have submerged my books in water. I have fixed my mind on another path. Please go to some other teacher." Wow, so he completely gave up this Nyaya. Or philosophy, speculation, so he completely gave it up and just wanted to take shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. The students gradually departed. At that time, Chaturabhuja Mishra, a matchmaker, arrived and proposed a match for Brajanath to his grandmother. Doesn't mean that Brajanath is going to marry his grandmother. Match for Brajanath to his grandmother. Sounds like that. But he went to Brajanath's grandmother, and proposed a match for Brajanath. Ooh. This is not a bad idea for Brajanath. He needs to be married. You'll see it later on. But he doesn't want to do it right now. But later on in the story, he becomes married. Vijayanath. And so in those days, there was a matchmaker in every village or in every community, and he would propose different matches. So many traditions it's like that. So people would get married not just because they just fell in love. That's a quite dangerous thing to fall in love. Just like, sometimes we talk to people who are married, we say to them, "Is your marriage a love marriage or is your marriage an arranged marriage?" And in most cases now it's, from India it's arranged marriage. When you get to the West, it's love marriage. And anyway, whatever. In either case, it's actually very much challenging in Kali Yuga. So his daughter is beautiful. Brajanath Bhattacharya comes from a good family. His daughter is beautiful. She is suitable for your house. If Bhattacharya gives his daughter to Brajanath, he will not take any reward. Bride price. So, anyway, this is how. That's funny. Okay. This is how they made their money. Oh, that's a pretty good way to make money. Just like going around and arranging marriages. It's not a sannyasi's business. Hearing about the marriage proposal, his grandmother was overjoyed. Brajanath thought, "What a disaster! I desire to give up samsara. How can I agree to this talk of marriage at this time?" His mother, grandmother, and other elders on one side, and he alone on the other side, began to have various heated arguments about this. This continued all day long. Wow. Interesting. Actually, we find in the case of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's brother, Visvarupa, he heard his parents, and I guess there was a matchmaker involved, talking about it too. And in the middle of the night, he just headed for the hills and disappeared. What took sannyas, of course. So Visvarupa is an expansion of Lord Nityananda. Where's Lord Nityananda? Later on, he got married. Okay. So there's no hindrance if someone's married. Don't worry about it. But Brajanath here is like the new devotee. Okay, this is interesting. It's like the new devotee who just joined keep seeing these messages pop up and then disappear. Anyway, he's like the new devotee who just joined Krishna consciousness, and he thinks he's more renounced than he actually is, or thinks it's appropriate for him to embark on extreme renunciation. That's very interesting. So we can relate this to many new devotees who join the movement. And then later on, these new devotees, when they're 30, 40, 50 years old, they discover they want to get married. Better do it early. In the evening, clouds covered the sky, and it began raining. That night, Brajanath did not go to Mayapur. Night passed. The next day, the bitter arguments continued, and he could not eat well. After night fell, he arrived at the old Babaji's kutir and offered respects. Babaji said, "Because of the heavy rain last night, you could not come. I am very happy that you came today." Brajanath said, "Prabhu, I have a great calamity. I will tell you later. Now I want to ask why the jiva, which is the pure particle of consciousness, is unfortunately situated in samsara." So he's asking about this because he feels that his grandmother and all the nice ladies, they want to put him deeper into samsara. Like the first verse of the Guru Vashika, samsara dhamana liloka. What does that mean? That the spiritual master is giving his mercy to wash away the samsara, like the rain pours clouds. The clouds pour rain on the fire to extinguish the fire. So Brajanath is very interested in having the fire of samsara extinguished, and he's thinking this marriage thing is going to be like lighting the fire. Phew. There's an interesting song from the 1960s. I'm not going to say it, but it says, anyway, it refers to someone lighting their fire. It's interesting. Anyway, so here's a verse. Babaji said, "Sarupartayar hinon nijasuka paran Krishna vimukan Harer maya danyan guna nigada jalai kalayati Tatastulair lingai dvi vidav Varanai klesha nikata nikart arar maha karmalanar nayati patitan swaga nirayao." By Swarup, the jiva is obedient to Krishna as his servant. The Lord afflicts the jivas to be punished, being averse to Krishna and inclined to their own enjoyment and devoid of their Swarup Dharma by the chains of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, of Maya Shakti. Okay. So in other words, because we turn our face away from Krishna, Krishna says, all right, you're going to be chained up by these three modes of nature and forced to act in certain ways. Nahi kaschit shanamapi jata tishtati karmakrit. Karyate yavasa karma. Sarva prakriti jagrana. As the Bhagavad Gita says, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the impulses of the modes of material nature. No one can refrain from action, even for a moment. He covers them with the gross and subtle bodies and degrades them with the bondage of karma, filled with all types of suffering, and makes them wander in heaven or hell. Oh my God, that's where we are. Sometimes we're in heaven, sometimes we're in hell. There are unlimited jivas, on the other hand, who are eternal associates of the Lord, manifested by Baladev and Goloka Vrindavan and Sankarshan and Vaikuntha. They enjoy ras, engaged in service of the Lord. They are always endowed with the wealth of their Swarup. They seek the happiness of the Lord. They are always favorable to the Lord. They are always strong, having attained the power of Chit Shakti within the Jiva Shakti. And that Chit Shakti is the spiritual Shakti. And the Jiva is by essence or nature Chit, or eternal, and also spiritual. By essence, the jiva is actually the same Shakti as spiritual. It's a spiritual Shakti that's mentioned as Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta, that the spiritual Shakti, Vishnu Shakti, is transcendental. Kshetra Yakya Tatapara, the jiva, is also para, or transcendental. So it's the same nature as the Chit Shakti, but it's covered within the Jiva Shakti. They have no relationship with Maya. These are the liberated souls in the spiritual world. They cannot understand that there's a Shakti called Maya. This is, of course, Maha Maya. They understand Yoga Maya, since they have missed the spiritual sphere. They can't understand it, but because of their compassion, they understand that certain souls are suffering within it, but they don't understand it because they're not experiencing it. You know, they know that there are souls outside, therefore they decide to come down. So there must be some awareness, but not understanding. Like, you know, understanding something means to do it or experience it. If you understand what I mean. Of course, if you understand what I mean. Like if you say, you know, understand the taste of a gulab-jamun. The only way you can understand the taste of a gulab-jamun is to eat the gulab-jamun. So Maya is very distant from them. They're always absorbed in the happiness of serving the Lord. Now this is really interesting. Let me outline this sentence. This is the essence of the spiritual world. They are always absorbed in the happiness of serving the Lord. This is called the bhakti ras. Just pleasing the Lord is the happiness. That means that these pure devotees do not care whether they're in the material world or spiritual world, because they're tasting the happiness of serving. They're not self-centered. If you're self-centered, you care whether you're in the material world or spiritual world. Got it? That's really interesting. Of course, in the beginning, we encourage people to want to go back to Godhead, obviously, because that's an impetus for an immature devotee. You should want to go back. But ultimately, the absorption in serving, in the happiness, the absorption, and the happiness one gets out of the absorption in serving the Lord can be experienced anywhere. Narayana Horak Sarve Nakutoshchina Bibyati Swarga Babarga Narageshu Apitulyartha Darshana. It says the topmost devotees, they can be in heaven, they can be in hell. They see these places the same. Why do they see them as the same? Because they're absorbed in pleasing Krishna. That's the bhakti ras. I have to say this again and again and again. If you want to know what bhakti ras is, that's bhakti ras. You understand? It's no self-centeredness. As soon as there is self-centeredness, then you have a contamination of the bhakti ras. They do not know suffering, material happiness, and selfish happiness, etc., even if they're in the world. They're eternally liberated. Prema is their very life. They do not know lamentation, death, or fear. So what does it mean, prema? That means the desire to please and the reciprocation that one gets from pleasing the Lord. The number of particles of consciousness, that's us again, which are within the rays of the Karana Dakshaya Mahavishnu's glance directed towards Maya, is unlimited. That means at the time of the creation, the Mahavishnu glances at the material creation, Maya, and implants us as jiva souls within the creation. And we're unlimited in number. Since they are situated at the side of Maya, they fix their glance on the variety in Maya. It's a fact. They're just looking at all this different variety. It's like sometimes, I may look at Facebook, not a lot like most people do, and just seeing what people do, even people, my friends, devotees. It's a picture of them here, picture of that variety, that variety. Here we are at the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Here we are doing this. Well, not necessarily serving Krishna. Here I am with all my little bubbla friends. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's an ethnic statement of all the friends. Anyway, so the jivas have the general qualities of the jiva that I previously described. Being tatashta, that means marginal, either going one way or the other, and endowed with the nature of being small particles, they glance toward the spiritual world and the material world. In other words, we could just keep turning our head. Hey, material world. Oh, spiritual world. In this situation, the jivas are very weak since they do not attain the spiritual strength from attaining the mercy of the Lord, the object of service. Among them, those who desire to enjoy Maya, becoming absorbed in material objects, are eternally bound up by Maya. Eternally means a long time. You can still get out. Those who cultivate a relationship with the Lord are brought to the spiritual world because of attaining spiritual strength along with the Lord's mercy. We are unfortunate. Forgetting that we are Krishna's eternal servant, we are bound up in Maya by absorption in Maya. In other words, we're attracted to the variety. I mean, there's a lot of variety here, because this variety is a reflection of the spiritual realm. A lot of variety. Just like I just came back from a trip. I was in Europe. Okay. And sometimes on the plane I just look at everybody. Just trying to understand people. Feeling unlimited compassion. I wish I was. So and I just seen, wow, everybody looks different. I said, that's amazing. How does Krishna come up with all this variety? Basically, even twins, there's no two people who actually look the same. Wow, Krishna is so amazing. So in the material world, there's so much variety. I'm sure even two amoebas look different. If you were another amoeba, you'd fall in love with one amoeba rather than falling in love with another amoeba. Thus, no, they are not mating male and female. So thus, we are in an unfortunate position being devoid of the treasure of our Swarup. So we've been robbed of the treasure of our Swarup, of understanding our nature. Jivas in the spiritual world, unlike jivas in the material world, are endowed with the Chit Shakti. Okay, that's the footnote. Brajana said, Prabhu, why do some jivas become absorbed in Maya from the injunction point of being situated in Tatashta nature? Why do some ascend to the spiritual world? Why are some in the spiritual world, and why are we here? What do we do? Babaji, this is an important question. Babaji said, Krishna's many qualities are present in small quantity in the Swarupa of the Jiva. Krishna has his free will. So here we're talking about Krishna's will. Icha Shakti, desire. This independent desire is present in the Jiva to a small amount as his nature, because we are parts and parcel of Krishna, or as they say in English, chips off the same block. If the Jiva uses his free will nicely, he becomes favorable to Krishna. If he uses his free will in another way, he becomes averse to the Lord. By that aversion, he then desires to enjoy Maya. Just like when you run away from home, then you're devoid of your parents or, whoever's at home. He develops the identity of I am the enjoyer of matter, and thus becomes situated in matter. The jiva sees different things in this world that are so attractive to them. The 5 qualities of ignorance develop and cover the conscious particle, the pure swarup or form of the jiva. The right and wrong choices of the free will of the jiva are the only cause of our state of liberation or bondage. Let's find the 5. Okay, ignorance. False ego. desire, hatred, and absorption in Maya. Brajana said, Krishna is most merciful. Why does he establish this weakness in the jiva? By this weakness, the jiva falls into absorption in Maya. If Krishna is the question again, to rephrase, if Krishna is so merciful, why doesn't he just make us like whatever, that we don't have that weakness? The way I usually answer that is that we are part and parcel of Krishna. So we have that independence, first of all. Second of all, if Krishna didn't have us with that particular nature, and we were never created, it's not that Krishna created us, we're eternally coexistent with Krishna, then there'd be no question of the bhakti ras, because there'd be no independence. And when there's no independence, you are like one of those AI robots. I mean, recently I've been seeing some videos of these new robots that people have, which is really interesting. And there was that one conference where some world body was interviewing like 8 of these different robots, asking them questions to see if the robots would actually take over the world and kill all of us. That's interesting. But the robots were programmed to act in a certain way, or sometimes they even try to program themselves. But in any case, they're given their power by the programmer. And the robot is like someone who is a sociopath, doesn't have feelings. So that's the danger. If you give someone a mission and they have no feelings, they may wreak havoc and kill everybody in the process of accomplishing their mission. Just like if you give a robot the mission of cleaning up the atmosphere. Okay, so cleaning up the atmosphere is stopping, or you tell the robot to stop global warming, for example. Okay, Mr. Robot, stop global warming. Well, the robot will think the most effective and efficient means of stopping global warming is what? Get rid of everybody. No more global warming. Nature goes back to the way that nature intended things to be. So that's a robot. But Krishna does not like robots. Or androids, as the case may be. Babaji said, Krishna is merciful, but he is full of pastimes. He has pastimes with the jiva in various conditions and various forms. With this desire, he has made the jiva suitable for unlimited elevation from the tatastha state to the highest mahabhav, that means the greatest ecstasy. In order to make the qualification of the spiritual world easy and firm, from the lowest stages of matter till ahankara, he has created this inferior maya, which acts as an unending obstacle for attaining the highest bliss. In other words, as an impetus to provide us with an impetus, motivation for attaining this bliss, he's made this world miserable. Because if Krishna made this world, let's say, blissful, it wouldn't be in our interest. Because even if you made the world, well, of course it couldn't be blissful, but if you made the world without the material miseries like birth, death, disease, and old age, okay, let's say everybody kept living, whatever, and then at that point we still wouldn't be happy. We might be in a neutral state like the Brahman state, but we wouldn't be happy, because happiness comes from understanding and acting in terms of our swarupa, our nature. Our nature is not matter. Our nature is not separation from Krishna. Our nature is Jiveta Swarupa Hoy, loving service, bhakti ras. There we get to that again. The most fallen jivas are without the wealth of their swarupa. That means forgotten their form. Inclined to their own enjoyment, are averse to Krishna. In this condition, although they are very fallen, Krishna, most merciful, along with his associates in Dham, turns to the jivas and gives them facility for elevation. In other words, Krishna has avatars. He crosses down and comes down. And he gives facility. He comes down and sends his holy Dham down. That's Vrindavan and Mayapur. In India, there's so many holy Dhams. And that's an opportunity for the jivas. The jiva who accepts this elevation along with accepting the opportunity gradually goes to the spiritual world and manifests the conditions similar to the Lord's eternal associates. In other words, even though you left that place or you're not in that place, you're here, your condition when you go back to the spiritual world can be like one of the Nitya Parshada or eternal associates, Nitya devotees. But this is interesting. Brajana said, why does the jiva experience suffering just for the Lord's pastimes? Now here Brajana is making the point that the Lord has his pastimes in the material world. And so in order for the Lord to have his pastimes in the material world, there has to be some people here. If you're going to go somewhere, you got to have people with you. If Krishna came to the material world and nobody was here, it would be no happiness for Krishna, right? If nobody was here in the material world, it's like going to a void. So Rajana is asking, does Krishna specifically put the jivas here and make them suffering just so he can have his pastimes here in the material world? This is it. Babaji said, one must say that attaining independent desire is a great mercy for the jiva, since material objects devoid of free will are very rejectable and insignificant. So in other words, the jiva's condition is to have independent desire. The difference between the jiva and Krishna is Krishna has independent desire, but his desire gets fulfilled. Ours doesn't. In spite of the philosophy in the material world that, the secret. The jiva, obtaining that free will, attains lordship over the material world. Suffering and happiness are conditions of the mind. What is my suffering is happiness for another person. Probably gives the example. What? The example is like the hog enjoys eating stool, whereas the human being, Prabhupada said, enjoys eating sweet rice. So one man's food is another man's poison. I consider the enjoyment of the senses as suffering. That's really interesting. It's suffering because it's separating us from Krishna. That's why it's suffering. Even if you think you're enjoying, you're eating the tastiest food. We're not talking about prasadam here. It's suffering. The materialist considers this to be happiness. The ultimate result of material happiness is suffering and nothing more, because you're separated from Krishna. Even if for some time there's no pain, there's the pain of being unfulfilled. Ultimately, and your fulfillment is in relationship to Krishna. Ultimately, a person experiences suffering from material attachment. Sounds like Buddhism. It is. Buddha says suffering is caused by attachment. Obviously. Just like if someone you love dies, you suffer because you're attached. Of course, there's spiritual suffering too, but that's purifying. Like when you feel the separation from a devotee. Oh, better finish the paragraph. When the suffering is most intense, the person develops a desire for unmixed happiness. From this desire, he develops the power of discrimination. In other words, when the suffering gets really bad, we just say, Krishna, help me. From discrimination, he develops inquiry. We start to inquire into the absolute truth. From inquiry, that's asking, he obtains the associate of devotees in faith. And that's what happened with me. When he develops faith, he becomes elevated. Thus, suffering finally gives an auspicious result. No pain, no gain, Prabhus. Oh my God. Suffering. Oh my God. So anyway, that's enough. So let's stop sharing and then we can take questions to see if anybody has any questions. Let me allow you to unmute yourselves if you want. Okay, so we have 30 people today. So Radhika, you have a question. So you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my obeisances. So nice to see you after a
Nice,
long
nice,
time.
nice to hear you. I can't see. I just see the water, right? White water.
Question, Maran. So I was not joining, when you previously were reading from Jaiva Dharma. So I'm a little lost. Like, who's Rajanath? Is this a fictitious character that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is? So could you explain?
Okay. Who is Brajanath? Brajanath is a person who was teaching Nyaya. He was an expert teacher of Nyaya. And he had many students. He was actually the most expert person in that part of Mayapur, Bengal. So he had an enemy named something Chudamani who wanted him to stop teaching Maya because not Maya, Nyaya. The reason he wanted him to stop because he was his competitor. So he performed some sacrifice for Durga and at a crematorium, and he got assured that Brajanath was not going to teach Nyaya anymore. And then what happened is that Brajanath became interested in Nimai Pandit's teaching of Nyaya. Okay. And then he became just absorbed in Lord Chaitanya's teaching of Nyaya, and just because he was associated with Lord Chaitanya in different ways, he lost his desire to teach like that, and he started inquiring from one of these Babajis. There's many different Babajis. One of these Babajis about Krishna consciousness. So this discussion that's going on here and is in the context of a dialogue between Brajanath and the Babaji. And there are many other dialogues that go on within the Jaiva Dharma. Previously, we heard about the dialogue between a previous Mayavad sannyasi, who later became a Vaishnava. So that's who Brajanath is. He's coming to Krishna consciousness. He's having explained to him right now the what's called sambandha. Sambandha means the basic tattvas and their relationship to each other. And later on, he's going to hear about abhideya and eventually prayojana. So that's the story of Brajanath and the Babaji. It's one of many stories within the Jaiva Dharma.
Thank you, Maran.
Okay, so next is a question from Krishna Priya Devi Dasi. Okay,
Jai Gurudev, welcome back.
nice. I
had one question. So we always hear about how we were speaking, how the living entities, they get a chance to reform here. And could we also understand that Krishna is also so kind that I've heard said that those devotees that have just like a tiny bit of things to work out to come closer to Krishna, that Krishna arranges this material world so they have the opportunity to associate with devotees and to hear about Krishna.
Yeah. I mean, the whole material world is mercy. Maya also means mercy. So for those who don't have an inclination, it's also mercy. They're just getting smashed and smashed and smashed until they say uncle. And those who are approaching Krishna doesn't have to smash them so much. Hopefully. That's a message I'm sending to Krishna right now. Don't have to smash me that much. So those devotees are given the opportunity to associate with devotees, because eventually, when one comes to the point of frustration, as they say in this famous song, can't get no satisfaction. When one comes to the point of frustration, then one just cries out to Krishna or cries out to God, God. As they say, what is it? No atheists in the foxhole. Now let me unpack that. Foxhole is like when they're fighting a war, the soldiers sometimes have to dig this hole in the ground to shield themselves from the incoming munitions. That means the incoming fire. It's called incoming, incoming. They say incoming. That means like a grenade is coming in or a rocket is coming in. So you actually go deep into the earth, or at least a few feet into the earth. That's called a foxhole. So there's a saying in English, there's no atheists in the foxhole. So in other words, when you have all these bullets and grenades and everything flying overhead, you remember God. You better be sure. Even if you're the biggest atheist, I mean, I guess if you're the biggest, you may not think of God. So then, when you remember God or cry out to Him, then Krishna sends Guru. And I experienced that in my own life. I was crying out, not because I was in so much pain, but I was crying out because I really wanted to understand God. As we say, or Krishna says in the Gita, 4 types of people approach Him. Jaturvada bhajanti mam. Those who are looking for wealth, those who are inquisitive, those who are looking for knowledge, and those who are in distress. So at least those 4 people, they come and they say, Krishna, God, where are you? And when they do that, then Krishna sends his representative. So therefore Krishna's very kind. He gives us these avatars and gurus and everything like that to help us. Okay? All right. Next is Abhay Chaitanya Das in good old Australia.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. Haribol. Gurudev, towards the end, you were one of the questions asked in the Jaiva Dharma was that how sometimes devotees are coming to this material world. Like Krishna wants devotees to come to the material world. And we now understand that even from stories like Jai and Vijay, where devotees come into the material world for Krishna to enable a pastime. Mm-hmm. So how are we to understand that, Gurudev? Like, is that because they're suffering in the material world as well? The question around do jivas come here to suffer because Krishna wants to have a pastime, for example? What's the? I couldn't quite understand the answer given. In terms of individual suffering. Yeah.
And the answer isn't fully developed so far. So there'll always be jivas in the material world. Krishna doesn't send the jivas to the material world just so he can enjoy his pastime. Unless in the case of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, that's a little different. But they're not really suffering because their connection with Krishna is there. Just like Prabhupada, you can't really say that Prabhupada was suffering, because suffering means identification with the material body. Attachment. Like the attachment, suffering is caused by attachment. So when a pure devotee comes, externally we may say, oh, they're suffering like anything. But in reality, because they're absorbed in this bhakti ras, even if there's some pain, it's just like, it's ecstatic for them because it's in the service of Krishna. Just like if one is doing something, for example, let's say if one has someone you really love in the world, and you're understanding that I'm doing something to help this person, even though it's a great austerity, someone goes to work and they have a family and they love their family, then, and they remember their family. When they forget their family, it's a problem. But when they're remembering their family and what they're doing, why they're doing it, and who they're doing it for, then it's not really suffering anymore. It's like a sign of ecstasy. I don't know if that's understandable. But so with the pure devotee, it's not suffering, although there's some pain there, but that pain is taken as a spiritual symptom. It's a spiritual, it's a type of spiritual ecstasy, like the pain of separation the gopis experience from Vrindavan, from Krishna. I'm sorry, the gopis remained in Vrindavan. So it's painful, but the pain is ecstasy. I mean, how to explain it? Because it's bhakti ras. You're doing something for someone who you love so much, you just want to please them. So there's no real suffering, in essence. Okay?
Yeah, no, understood, Gurudev. But Gurudev, it doesn't mean that we as individual souls, we have come into this material world out of our own will, haven't we? It's not like,
Yeah, it's not that Krishna said,
yeah,
I needed some like conditioned
yeah,
souls so I
yeah,
could do my unlimited
for
best.
enjoyment. Yeah.
No, no, no.
Okay.
Krishna is saying, okay, Abhay Chaitanya, you should be in Maya so I can enjoy the world. So please send a lot of, just force these people to come to the material world so I can enjoy myself with my pastimes. No, it's not like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Gurudev.
All right. Nice to see everybody. I have to end now because it's time. Thank you very much. We'll see everybody tomorrow. All glories to Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.